Let's go to Israel, to Tel Aviv. American-Israeli journalist and Iranian affairs expert Emily Schrader joins us. Emily, currently in Tel Aviv, what's the feeling like on the ground there? The ceasefire, fingers crossed, seems to be holding at this stage anyway.
First of all, thanks for having me on. So far, so good in terms of the ceasefire. We haven't seen any major violations. That first day, we did see the Iranian regime fire again at the state of Israel. And then there was some controversy over whether or not Israel would respond, or if so, how much. In the end, Israel did respond in a sort of symbolic strike, targeting a radar area. But other than that, we haven't seen really any further significant activity. In the meantime, I think we do expect that to continue. But more importantly, I think, is what's happening on the ground in terms of the public opinion. And what we've seen since this ceasefire was declared is quite a bit of opposition to it. I think that a lot of the Israeli public was more than prepared to extend this operation and ensure that we really dealt the Islamic Republic a heavy blow, and perhaps gave the Iranian people a chance to really rise up and take back their country. It remains to be seen if that will or will not happen. At this point, we have dealt a pretty serious blow to the Islamic regime. But again, there's a lot of activity going on the ground inside Iran now that I'm hearing from contacts there. A lot of checkpoints, a lot of arrests. Over 700 Iranian civilians have already been arrested. Text messages have gone out to tens of thousands of Iranian civilians, warning them that there are hefty prison sentences for liking or following Israeli pages on social media. So we see this totalitarian state acting as totalitarian states do, even against their own citizens in this scenario.
Well, you are an expert on Iran. It's your expertise. I mean, that's how you expect a regime as brutal as the one that's been running Iran for the last 50 years that's how they're going to act, aren't they? They're going to round up their own people who they might suspect might have helped out Israel or might be involved with Mossad or whatever.
Well, unfortunately, that is the reality, and that was the expectations. I mean, every day of this operation, I've been in touch with Iranians who said to me, please don't stop, but we need the assistance of the international community. Even if not militarily, there needs to be some more support from the international community for the people of Iran who are trying to fight back against this regime. There have been multiple waves of massive protests across the country in recent decades, and every single time, Western leaders in the Western world, particularly Europe and the United States, have really turned their backs on the Iranian people. At least that's how they see it. And instead of holding the regime accountable for their crimes, for their funding of terror proxies, for their nuclear program violations and the development or the pursuit of nuclear weapons, we've seen instead the West give them sanction relief, cut deals, do all kinds of things that really prop up the regime and give them a lifeline in the end. And unfortunately, that's kind of what we're seeing right now, despite the fact that President Trump has previously been very strong when it comes to dealing with the Islamic regime. The reality is any deal with the Islamic regime in Iran that leaves this regime intact is already a failure, because they're just going to continue doing the same thing. They're going to continue funding terror proxies if there's sanction relief. They're going to continue targeting their own people. They're going to continue their crimes against humanity. Their misogynist rules of whipping and arresting and executing people for removing hijab. I mean, outrageous human rights violations taking place. And yet still, even during the war, the foreign minister of that regime was invited to speak in the UN Human Rights Council. I mean, as Israelis, we know that this is hypocritical because there's a lot of problems in the United Nations, but this is just beyond the pale. I mean, it's a slap in the face to the Iranian people who are fighting with everything they have to push back against this regime. And in fact, we've seen really unprecedented solidarity between Israelis on the ground at the civil level and Iranians on the ground at the civil level. Unfortunately, in their case, it does actually or can actually threaten their lives. And we need international support to push back against this.
We can only hope and pray for regime change. Emily Schrader, thank you very much for joining us there from Tel Aviv.